The auction block felt like ice beneath Rosalie's bare feet, even through the silk slippers they'd forced her to wear. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured rainbows across mahogany walls, light catching the tears she refused to let fall. 16 years of sheltered luxury had not prepared her for this. "Ladies and gentlemen," Madame Cordelia's voice cut through cigar smoke, each word sharp as a blade. "Our final offering tonight. 16 years old, classically trained in 4 languages, untouched by the vulgarity of modern society." The words struck Rosalie like physical blows. This wasn't the cultural exchange her mother had promised. This was a sale, and she was the merchandise. Her white silk gown felt like a shroud. The diamonds at her throat were cold as winter stars. She searched the shadowed faces before her, looking for any trace of humanity in their calculating stares. Most examined her with the same detached interest they might show a thoroughbred horse or vintage wine. The bidding began at a number that could have bought a house in the suburbs. It climbed higher with each raised hand, each casual nod, each whispered consultation. Then a voice from the back cut through all others like thunder. The bid was so astronomical it silenced every competitor instantly. Heads turned toward the speaker, and even Madame Cordelia's composure cracked. "Sold," she announced, though her smile seemed suddenly forced. "To Mr. Montenegro." Sebastian Montenegro stepped into the light, and Rosalie felt something shift in her chest. Perhaps 38, with dark hair touched silver at the temples, and eyes that held depths she couldn't fathom. His face was aristocratic, carved from granite and shadow, but there was something in his expression that set him apart from the others. While they had looked at her with naked hunger, his gaze held something different. Not desire exactly, but not indifference either. As if he was seeing not just her, physical form, but the terrified girl beneath the elaborate costume, he stopped 3 feet from the platform and extended his hand. "Miss Lauron." His voice was lower than she'd expected, roughened by what sounded like years of whiskey and cigarettes. When she hesitated, something flickered in his dark eyes. Not impatience, but understanding. "I won't hurt you," he said quietly. And somehow, she believed him. Rosalie placed her trembling hand in his. His fingers were warm, calloused in a way that suggested he'd known work beyond the luxury his expensive suit suggested. The touch sent an unexpected jolt through her. Not fear, but something else entirely. "Come," he murmured, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "Let's get you out of here." As he led her toward the exit, she caught a glimpse of the other men's faces. Some looked disappointed, others calculating. But Sebastian Montenegro didn't look back, simply walked beside her, his hand steady on hers. The night air hit her like a slap when they emerged onto the Paris street. The city lights blurred through her unshed tears. The Eiffel Tower rose in the distance, its iron latticework now looking more like prison bars than the romantic symbol she'd always imagined. A black Bentley waited at the curb, engine purring. Sebastian opened the door for her, and as she slid, across the leather seats, one thought hammered in her mind with brutal clarity. Her mother had sold her. Alina Lauron, who had whispered of love and protection and special destinies, had delivered her own daughter into the hands of strangers like a lamb to slaughter. "Where are we going?" she whispered, as Sebastian settled beside her. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face in the passing streetlights. When he finally spoke, his words carried a weight that suggested they meant more than she could understand. "Somewhere safe, at least for tonight." The car pulled into traffic, carrying her away from everything she'd ever known. As the lights of Paris blurred past the windows, Rosalie realized the fairy tale of her life had ended the moment she stepped onto that auction block. Now she belonged to Sebastian Montenegro, and she had no idea whether he would prove to be her salvation or her destruction. Sebastian Montenegro's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building overlooking the Seine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Paris that would have taken Rosalie's breath away under different circumstances. Now, standing. In the center of his living room, the city lights below felt like stars she could never reach again. The space was elegant but masculine. Dark wood and leather, original oil paintings that probably cost more than most people's homes. A fire crackled in a marble fireplace, casting dancing shadows across walls lined with books in multiple languages. It should have been welcoming. Instead, it felt like a beautiful cage. "You're afraid," Sebastian said, pouring himself 2 fingers of whiskey from a crystal decanter. His suit jacket lay discarded over a chair, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms, marked with scars that spoke of a past far rougher than his current refinement suggested. "Wouldn't you be?" Rosalie's voice came out stronger than she'd expected, though she wrapped her arms around herself to stop the trembling. He turned to study her, the amber liquid catching the firelight as he lifted it to his lips. "Yes, I would be terrified." The honesty in his admission surprised her. She'd expected lies, pretty words meant to manipulate her into compliance. Instead, he simply watched her with those dark eyes that seemed to see too much. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you buy me? Why did you pay so much when you could have?" She stopped, unable to voice the horrible alternatives. Sebastian set down his glass and moved closer, but not close enough to threaten. "Because I've seen what happens to girls like you in places like that. I bought you because someone needed to get you out of there before worse men than me got their hands on you." "Worse than you?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. His smile held no warmth. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm many things, but I'm not in the business of harming children. Some of the men in that room tonight very much are." The endearment should have angered her, should have felt condescending. Instead, something about the way he said it made her chest tighten with an emotion she couldn't name. "What happens now?" she asked. "That depends on you." "On me?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I was just sold like cattle. What choice? Do I have in anything?" Sebastian walked to his desk and opened a drawer, pulling out a thick manila envelope. He held it out to her, and when she hesitated, he set it on the coffee table between them. "Inside that envelope is a passport, identification papers, and enough money to start a new life anywhere in the world. There's also contact information for people who can help you disappear completely if that's what you want." Rosalie stared at the envelope like it might bite her. "I don't understand. You can leave tonight if you want. Walk out that door and never look back. I'll tell anyone who asks that you ran away in the night, and I'll make sure no one comes looking for you." "And if I stay?" Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "If you stay, you become part of my world. You help me with certain business arrangements that require someone with your particular combination of beauty, intelligence, and innocence. You attend social functions, charm the right people, gather information. In return, you live better than most people dream of. You want me to be a spy? I want you to survive, and to help me destroy the network that put you on that auction block in the first place." The words hit her like electricity. "You know about them? About what they do?" "I've been hunting them for 3 years." His voice carried a weight of old fury barely contained. "They destroyed someone I cared about, and I've been systematically dismantling their operation ever since." Rosalie sank into one of the leather chairs, her legs suddenly unsteady. "My mother. She knew what would happen to me." "Yes." The simple confirmation was more devastating than any elaboration could have been. Tears finally spilled over, and she didn't try to stop them. "I'm sorry," Sebastian said quietly. "I know that doesn't help, but I am." She looked up at him through her tears and saw something unexpected in his expression. Pain. Real, raw pain that matched her own. "Who did they destroy?" she whispered. His jaw tightened. "My sister. She was 17 when they took her. By the time I found her, she was already gone." The room fell silent except for the crackling of the fire. Rosalie understood now why he'd bid so aggressively. why he'd looked at her with recognition rather than hunger. He'd seen his sister on that platform. "I'll stay," she said. "Rosalie, I'll stay." She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "But I have conditions." One eyebrow raised. "You're hardly in a position to negotiate." "Aren't I?" She stood, drawing. On every lesson in poise and presence her mother had drilled into her. "You need me to be convincing in your world of wealthy criminals and corrupt aristocrats. I can't do that if I'm broken. So either you treat me as an equal partner in this, or you might as well hand me that envelope now." For a long moment, he simply looked at her. Then slowly a real smile touched his lips. Not the cold, calculated expression she'd seen before, but something genuine. "You're tougher than you look. I have to be now." He extended his hand. "Partners, then. Equal stakes, equal risks." She took his hand, feeling the warmth of his palm against hers. "Partners!" As they shook on it, Rosalie felt the ground shift beneath her feet again, but this time, it wasn't the terror of falling. It was the strange, dizzying sensation of choosing her own path for the first time in her life, even if that path led straight into darkness. 3 months later, Rosalie barely recognized herself in the mirror. The girl who'd trembled on that auction block had been replaced by someone harder, sharper. She wore a black cocktail dress that cost more than her mother's monthly rent, diamond earrings that Sebastian had given her for her first successful intelligence gathering, and a smile that could disarm men twice her age. Tonight's target was Viktor Morozov, a Russian oligarch who'd been financing the auction house's expansion into Eastern Europe. The charity gala at the Palais Garnier was the perfect hunting ground. "Remember," Sebastian's voice came through the nearly invisible earpiece. "He likes intelligent women who challenge him. Don't be too agreeable." "I know what I'm doing," she murmured, pretending to adjust her earring as she spoke. "I know you do. That's what worries me." Something in his tone made her chest tighten. Over the past 3 months, their partnership had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated. Late nights reviewing intelligence reports turned into conversations about everything and nothing. Professional touches lingered a fraction too long. Glances held meanings they couldn't voice. But they'd both been careful never to cross that line. "Rosalie." Sebastian's voice pulled her back. "He's approaching." 3 o'clock. She turned with calculated precision, allowing Victor to catch her eye. He was exactly as the dossier described, mid-50s, silver hair, eyes like a shark. The kind of man who viewed people as assets to be acquired or eliminated. "Enchanting," he said in accented English, taking her hand and bringing it to his lips. "I don't believe we've met." "Rosalie Beaumont," she said, using the false identity Sebastian had created. "And you're the infamous Viktor Morozov. Your reputation precedes you. Infamous? I prefer misunderstood, don't we all?" He laughed, a sound like gravel in a blender, and offered his arm. "Walk with me. These events bore me unless I have stimulating company." As they moved through the crowd, Rosalie worked her magic. She asked the right questions, laughed at his jokes, and gradually steered the conversation toward his business interests. Within 20 minutes, she had the location of his next shipment and the names of 3 corrupt officials on his payroll. "You're very curious about my work," Victor said suddenly, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Rosalie's heart stuttered, but her training held. "I find powerful men fascinating, the way they navigate such complicated worlds." "Is that what draws you to Sebastian Montenegro?" The air left her lungs. "I don't know what you mean. Please." Victor's grip on her arm tightened, just shy of painful. "Did you think we wouldn't notice? A girl sold at Madame Cordelia's auction 3 months ago. Now appearing at high society events with a new identity? We've been watching you both. Victor, you're hurting me." "Not yet. I'm not." He pulled her toward a side corridor, away from the crowds. Rosalie's hand went to the small panic button disguised as a pendant, but Victor caught her wrist. "Sebastian can't save you now, little bird. You see, he made a critical mistake. He thought he was hunting us." Victor's smile was reptilian. "He never realized we were hurting him exactly where we wanted him." "What are you talking about?" "Your mother, sweet Alina. She didn't sell you out of desperation or greed. She sold you because we told her to, because we needed someone Sebastian would want to save, someone who would make him sloppy, emotional, compromised. The words were a knife between her ribs. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself why she chose that specific auction house, why she ensured you'd be the final lot of the evening, why everything was so perfectly arranged to appeal to Sebastian's savior complex. Rosalie's mind raced through the past 3 months, seeing everything in a new, sickening light. Her mother's tears that night had seemed so genuine. But what if they weren't tears of guilt, but of calculated performance? And now, Victor continued, pulling out his phone, we have everything we need. Every safe house location you've visited, every contact you've met, every piece of intelligence you've gathered. All documented, all tracked. Sebastian Montenegro's entire operation, delivered to us by his own protégé. I didn't know, Rosalie whispered, horror flooding through her. I swear I didn't know. Of course you didn't. That's what made you so perfect. He released her arm and stepped back, straightening his tie. Run along now, little bird. Tell Sebastian what you've learned. Watch his face when he realizes the girl he saved was actually the weapon that destroyed him. I wonder if he'll kill you himself, or if he'll just let my associates do it. Victor walked away, leaving Rosalie alone in the corridor, her entire world crumbling around her. She'd been so careful, so thorough, but she'd been tracked every step of the way. Every victory had actually been a defeat. Every piece of intelligence she'd gathered had been a breadcrumb, leading Sebastian's enemies straight to his door. She'd destroyed him, and she'd done it with the best intentions, which somehow made it so much worse. Rosalie? Sebastian's voice crackled through the earpiece. Rosalie, what's happening? Your heart rate just spiked. Talk to me. She couldn't answer. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the devastating realization that she was exactly what Madame Cordelia had advertised. A beautiful weapon, perfectly crafted to destroy the one person who'd shown her kindness. I'm coming to you, Sebastian said, urgency flooding his voice. Stay where you are. But Rosalie was already moving, not toward him, but away. Because if Victor was right, if this had all been a trap from the beginning, then staying close to Sebastian would only ensure his destruction. The only question was whether she could disappear before he found her, or before Victor's associates found them both. Rosalie made it 3 blocks before Sebastian's Bentley cut her off. He emerged from the vehicle like a storm given human form. His usually composed expression shattered into something raw and dangerous. In the streetlight, she could see the fear beneath his fury. What the hell happened back there? He reached for her, but she flinched away. The movement stopped him cold. Don't touch me, she whispered. Don't come near me. Rosalie, whatever they said to you, it was all a trap. Her voice broke on the words. From the beginning. My mother, the auction me. We played right into their hands, and now they have everything. Every location, every contact, every piece of your operation. I gave it to them. She watched the information hit him, watched him process the magnitude of the betrayal. But his expression didn't harden with the hatred she'd expected. Instead, something impossibly gentle entered his eyes. I know. The words made no sense. What? I've known for 6 weeks, Sebastian said quietly. I found the tracking software they'd embedded in your pendant. The one I gave you. Rosalie's hand went to her throat, to the diamond pendant she'd worn every day since he'd given it to her after her first mission. You knew I was compromised? I knew they were using you. There's a difference. Then why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me keep going? Sebastian moved closer, and this time she didn't pull away. Because I needed them to think they were winning. Every piece of intelligence you gathered, I fed them exactly what I wanted them to know. Every location they tracked led to safe houses I'd already abandoned or filled with false evidence. You weren't destroying my operation, Rosalie. You were helping me destroy theirs. The relief that flooded through her was so intense it brought her to her knees. Sebastian caught her before she hit the pavement, pulling her against his chest as sobs racked her body. You used me, she said against his shirt. But there was no accusation in it, only exhausted understanding. I protected you, he corrected softly. If they'd realized you knew, they would have killed you immediately. As long as they thought you were their unwitting weapon, you were safe. Safe? They're going to kill us both now. Not if we move first. He helped her stand, his hands gentle but firm on her arms. Victor thinks he's won. He thinks I'm scrambling to cover my tracks, that I'm weakened and desperate. He's wrong. Tonight, while he's celebrating his victory, we're going to hit every location he just bragged about. We're going to burn his entire operation to the ground. Rosalie looked up at him, seeing the dangerous brilliance in his eyes. This was the man who'd spent 3 years hunting the people who'd destroyed his sister. This was the predator beneath the polished surface. What do you need me to do? I need you to make a choice. His expression turned serious. What we're about to do, there's no coming back from it. We're going to war with some of the most dangerous people in the world. If you walk away right now, I'll make sure you're protected. New identity, new life, far from all of this. And you? I finish what I started. With or without you. Rosalie thought about the envelope he'd given her 3 months ago. The offer of escape that still sat in his desk drawer. She could take it now. Disappear into a normal life. Let Sebastian wage his war alone. But when she closed her eyes, she saw his face when he'd told her about his sister. Saw the recognition in his eyes on that auction block. Saw 3 months of late nights and stolen glances and a partnership that had grown into something neither of them could name but both of them felt. I'm staying, she said. But not because you need me. Because I need this. I need to make them pay for what they did. Not just to me, but to every girl they've sold. Every family they've destroyed. I need them to know that I wasn't their weapon. I was yours. Something fierce and possessive flared in Sebastian's eyes. You were never my weapon, Rosalie. You became something far more dangerous. What's that? He touched her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything about their situation. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and she felt the gesture in every nerve ending. My reason to win. The words hung between them, heavy with implications they didn't have time to explore. Rosalie knew that after tonight, everything would change. They would either destroy their enemies together, or die trying. There was no middle ground, no safety net. But as she looked into Sebastian's eyes, she realized she'd already made her choice the moment she took his hand on that auction block. Maybe Victor was right. Maybe she had been a weapon designed to destroy. Sebastian Montenegro what he hadn't counted on was that weapons could choose their own targets. Tell me the plan, she said. Sebastian's smile was sharp as broken glass. First, we make them think they've won. Then, while they're not looking, we take everything they love and burn it to ash. He pulled out his phone and made a call. It's time. Execute Phase 3. As he spoke, Rosalie felt the fear that had paralyzed her transform into something else, something cold and focused and utterly ruthless. Victor had tried to make her into a weapon of destruction. He'd succeeded. He'd just aimed her at the wrong target. The warehouse district burned against the Paris night sky. Rosalie watched the flames consume Victor's primary distribution center from the roof of a building 6 blocks away. Beside her, Sebastian spoke in rapid French into his phone, coordinating simultaneous raids on 17 locations across the city. In 3 hours, they dismantled an empire. The authorities have Madame Cordelia, Sebastian said, ending his call. She's already negotiating testimony in exchange for protection. Victor's running, but he won't get far. We've frozen his accounts, seized his properties, and every corrupt official on his payroll is about to have a very bad morning. And my mother? The question had been haunting her all night. Sebastian was quiet for a moment. She's in protective custody. Turns out she was being blackmailed. They had evidence of your father's crimes, threatened to destroy you both if she didn't cooperate. She thought she was saving your life by giving you to me, instead of letting them take you directly. The information should have brought relief. Instead, it just made everything more complicated. So she did love me. In her own broken way, yes. It doesn't excuse what she did, but it explains it. Rosalie watched the flames dance, thinking about the girl she'd been 3 months ago. That girl would have cried, would have forgiven, would have tried to fix everything. The woman she'd become understood that love and damage often wore the same face. What happens now? She asked. Now we disappear, at least for a while. Victor still has allies and they'll want revenge. I have a place in the Greek islands. Remote, secure. We can lay low there until things settle. And after that? Sebastian turned to face her, the firelight casting shadows across his features. In the flickering orange glow, he looked both dangerous and devastatingly beautiful. That depends on what you want. What I want. Rosalie laughed, the sound carrying an edge of hysteria. I'm 17 years old. I've been sold, betrayed, turned into a spy, and just helped burn down a criminal empire. I have no idea what I want." "Yes, you do." The certainty in his voice made her look at him. "You've known what you wanted since that first night when you chose to stay instead of run. You've just been too afraid to admit it." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Sebastian, I'm not asking you to decide tonight. I'm not asking you to decide next week or next month. But eventually, you're going to have to face the fact that this thing between us stopped being about survival a long time ago." He moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of him despite the cold night air. "I never wanted to care about you," he continued, his voice rough. "You were supposed to be a mission, a way to honor my sister's memory. But somewhere between that auction block and tonight, you stopped being the girl I saved and became the woman I can't imagine my life without." Rosalie's breath caught. She'd known, of course, had felt it in every loaded glance, every unnecessary touch, every moment they'd found excuses to be near each other. But hearing him say it out loud made it impossible to hide behind professional distance anymore. "You're twice my age," she whispered, but it sounded weak even to her own ears. "I am. And when you're ready, if you're ever ready, if you decide that's something you can see past, I'll be waiting. But I won't push. I won't manipulate. I won't use the power imbalance between us to take something you're not ready to give." "What if I'm never ready?" Pain flickered across his face, but his voice remained steady. "Then I'll have had the honor of knowing you, fighting beside you, and watching you become exactly who you were always meant to be. That will have to be enough." Rosalie felt tears prick her eyes, but this time they weren't tears of fear or betrayal. They were tears of recognition, of finally understanding that the thing she'd been running from wasn't danger or darkness, or even Sebastian himself. It was the terrifying realization that she'd fallen in love with her savior, her mentor, her partner in destruction. And that love, complicated and morally gray as it was, felt more real than anything else in her shattered world. She took his hand, the same way she had on that auction block 3 months ago. But this time, there were no chains, no transactions, no one forcing her choice. "Take me to Greece," she said. "And when we get there, ask me again what I want. Maybe I'll have figured out how to say it out loud." Sebastian's smile was slow and devastating. "I can wait." "Good, because I'm still figuring out who I am now. The girl from before is gone, but I don't quite know who replaced her yet. Want to know what I see when I look at you?" "What?" "Someone who took the worst thing that ever happened to her and turned it into a weapon. Someone who chose vengeance over victimhood. Someone who's brave enough to burn down the world, but gentle enough to cry for a mother who betrayed her." He squeezed her hand. "You're not broken, Rosalie. You're forged, and that makes you far more dangerous than anyone who tried to use you could have imagined." Below them, sirens wailed as emergency services converged on the burning warehouse. In the distance, Rosalie could see the Eiffel Tower, still standing proud against the night sky. Paris, the city that had witnessed her sale and her salvation, would survive tonight's fires, and so would she. 3 months ago, she'd been sold like merchandise to the highest bidder. Tonight, she'd chosen her own price, set her own terms, and claimed her own power. The cost had been everything she'd thought she knew about herself, her mother, and her place in the world. But what she'd gained was worth infinitely more. She'd gained herself. "Sebastian?" she said as they turned to leave the rooftop. "Yes? Thank you. For seeing me as more than what they tried to make me." He brought her hand to his lips, the gesture achingly tender. "Thank you for becoming more than I ever imagined possible." They walked into the shadows together, 2 broken people who'd found in each other not healing, but something better. Partnership. Understanding. A shared darkness that made their rare moments of light feel like salvation. Behind them, Paris burned and sirens screamed, and somewhere Viktor Morozov ran for his life. Ahead of them, a boat waited to carry them to Greek shores, and uncertain futures, and questions neither of them was quite ready to answer. But in that moment, walking hand in hand through the cold Paris night, Rosalie felt something she hadn't experienced since childhood. Hope. Not the naive hope of a sheltered girl who believed in fairy tales, but the hard-won hope of a survivor who'd stared into darkness and decided to carry her own light. She'd been sold at an auction, She'd been betrayed by her mother. She'd been used as a weapon by men who thought her powerless. But she'd survived it all. And survival, she was learning, was its own kind of victory. 3 months from now, maybe she'd know what she wanted. Maybe she'd find the words to tell Sebastian that he'd become her home in a way no place ever could. Maybe she'd build a new life from the ashes of the old one. Or maybe she'd just keep walking forward, one day at a time, figuring it out as she went. Either way, the choice would be hers. And that, more than anything, was enough. The end.